Number 10. Chopped in half. Rocio Cortez Nunez had to be one of the unluckiest people ever to have been born. After giving birth at a hospital in Spain, she ended up being chopped in half. Oh yes, her body was literally cleaved into 2 pieces. It happened while she was lying on a stretcher. Hospital staff were pushing Rocio's stretcher into an elevator when the doors malfunctioned. The doors opened and closed, but the elevator didn't move. When the hospital worker tried to push Rocio out of the elevator, worried that something was wrong, it started to move up. He couldn't push her out or pull her completely back in, and, well, what happened next was something out of a horror movie. The woman was chopped in half by the elevator as it moved up the shaft. Instead of a horror movie, this happened in real life. It took firefighters nearly 2 hours to get her unjammed from the elevator. The part of her body that still had the head attached was trapped between the frame and the roof, with her feet still dangling inside the shaft. The incident was described by the regional health minister as quick, unusual, and tragic. Nobody could have predicted such an accident happening, and now the woman's newborn baby will be growing up without her. Number 9. Bear attack. Wildlife officials have been forced to euthanize a female bear and her 2 cubs after a rather unlucky woman found herself being eaten by these savage animals. It all happened when the woman was taking her dogs for a walk on a Friday night in La Plata County. When she never returned home, her boyfriend got worried and went out looking for her. According to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, he found their 2 dogs at home, but not his girlfriend. He immediately called 911, knowing something was wrong, and this was when authorities found her body off the US 550. Officers found obvious evidence that a bear had eaten several parts of the woman. They also found bear droppings and bear hair all around the dead body. When they tracked the bear down, they found it was a mama bear with her 2 cubs. For whatever reason, the hungry bears targeted the woman, ate several different parts of her, then left her for dead. Corey Chick with the CPW Southwest region said that bear attacks are extremely rare. Even though wild animals can be potentially dangerous, people almost never get attacked by them. This is especially true if people are walking their dogs, since bears and other predators will usually try to avoid confrontation. The unnamed woman just so happened to be one of the few unlucky people to get eaten by one of these giant woodland creatures. Number 8. The fire escape. Just recently, a famous Russian YouTuber known for exploring some of the creepiest abandoned structures in Russia had a pretty unlucky accident. His name was Dmitry Beshintsev, and he fell to his death down a fire escape. It happened in September while he was exploring an abandoned piece of property in the Russian capital of Moscow. He and his 2 friends went into the dilapidated building, which at the time had been undergoing renovations. They climbed to the top of the building, took some pictures on the roof, and that was when misfortune struck. As Dmitry leaned against a fire escape, the crumbling ladder gave way and he fell and plummeted 5 stories to the hard ground below. His friends watched in disbelief as he simply vanished over the edge of the roof. Then, seconds later, they heard the hollow thud of his body hitting the ground. He died immediately, and there was nothing anyone can do to save him. Number 7. Virtual reality fail. In Moscow, a 44-year-old man wanted to feel young again. So, he purchased himself a virtual reality headset. We don't know what games he got, but we do know he was pretty excited to try out this new and revolutionary piece of technology. Sadly for him, he became the unluckiest VR user ever. He also became the first virtual reality-related death ever reported in the world. As he was moving through his apartment with his headset on, he hit a glass table, fell face first into it, and sliced himself up so badly that he died from a loss of blood before he can even get the VR headset off. This is according to Yulia Ivanova, the senior assistant to the head of the Russian Investigative Committee. The authorities didn't release any information about exactly which VR headset he was wearing, but it doesn't really make a difference anyway. If you're going to try VR, remember to get your furniture out of the way and try not to fall through any glass tables. Have you tried out a VR headset? Are you scared now after hearing what happened to this guy? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking this video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe button if you haven't already. Number 6. The worst holiday. A 16-year-old schoolgirl had the unluckiest holiday ever. Her name was April Scorer. She had gone to the south coast of France with her family and was relaxing at their campsite when tragedy smacked her square in the face. Without warning, April collapsed and died. But before she died, she had been hanging out with some friends. She had been to this holiday spot several times before and knew the people who lived in the area. She was at the bar having a drink when she suddenly became visibly unwell to those around her. She couldn't speak, she was having difficulty walking, and she hadn't drank nearly enough to be that intoxicated. She took a seat by her campsite, vomited, and then fell down. The French fire brigade was called in to assist with the unresponsive young girl, but within an hour, she was declared deceased by a doctor. The toxicology examination showed that she did indeed have a low blood alcohol level, so what could have caused an ordinary high school girl to suddenly drop dead? Sadly, the doctors found that she had an unidentified heart condition. Everything else surrounding her death was just a coincidence. Nobody had known that her heart was so fragile, nor that she had been living her whole life on borrowed time. Then on vacation, that borrowed time ran out. Number 5. Death from above. Taylor Kale, a 29-year-old resident of San Diego, was walking home with a friend at about 7:30 one night. They were strolling down the street, and everything seemed to be going perfectly fine. Then, from out of nowhere, something hit Taylor on the head, and she died. No, it wasn't an anvil. Nobody had pushed a piano out the window. Instead, the thing that clunked Taylor on the head was a person. An unknown man had taken a leap off the roof of a building. His jump happened to coincide perfectly with Taylor moving along the sidewalk below. Rather than splatter his brains all over the concrete, he hit Taylor so hard that her brain basically exploded. Not only was Taylor unlucky, the guy she'd been dating wasn't that fortunate either. The incident, while obviously terrible for Taylor, was absolutely traumatizing for her new boyfriend. She was on the third date with a man she'd met on the internet, and things were beginning to heat up. He could never in 1,000 years have predicted that a human body would land on his date's head and crush her in front of him. The date wasn't hurt at all, though Taylor and the guy who fell from the roof both died. And while we don't know much about the guy who came from above, we do know that according to NBC News, Taylor was just 1 week away from celebrating her 30th birthday. Number 4. Unlucky thief. A very unlucky thief got into a bit of a tangle with some electric lines. Residents of a small Nigerian city woke up in the morning to discover the body of some random guy dangling several feet up an electric pole. Since nobody knew what to do or how to get him down without electrocuting themselves, his body stayed up there for hours. Yikes. You're probably wondering just what exactly a thief was doing climbing an electric pole in the first place. In Nigeria, a country plagued by frequent blackouts, thieves often take the opportunity to climb electric poles and steal copper wire. They will also steal transformer oil and anything else that's loose and worth money. The issue with stealing pieces from electric poles is that the thieves don't know when the power is going to come back on. In this guy's case, the power came on while he was in the middle of trying to steal copper wire. Karma? He received a massive electric shock, killing him instantly. But rather than falling off the electric pole, his shirt got caught, and he ended up hanging there until the cops finally came and got him down. Number 3. A random attack. Imagine being so unlucky that you die from being randomly punched in the face by a person you've never met in your entire life. That's exactly how unlucky Thomas Driscoll was. At 57 years old, Thomas was a retired state police bomb squad member from Connecticut. He had driven to Las Vegas as part of a hiking trip that would take him through many western parts of the United States. He was walking across the pedestrian bridge near the Bally's Casino when a completely random person swung his fist into Thomas's face. The punch landed with such force that Thomas was knocked backward. His head hit the pavement, and his lights went out forever. For Thomas, he probably never even knew what happened. 1 second he was walking, the next, everything was dark. The attacker was identified by police as 33-year-old Brandon Leith, a degenerate known for hanging around the Vegas Strip. And here's where things get frustrating. Locals had already reported Brandon to the police, saying that he was dangerous and a ticking time bomb. They said he should not be anywhere in public, but the police didn't do anything. Because this completely insane person was allowed to just hang around in public, Thomas Driscoll's hiking trip, as well as his life, were cut terribly short. Number 2. Unlucky matador. Jose Delgado Guerra, also known as Pepe Io, was one of the most respected matadors in the 18th century. In fact, he even published a book on proper bullfighting back in 1796, describing style and technical precision. But he was still a bullfighter, and throughout his career, he suffered quite a few injuries. He was wounded at least 13 times before his luck finally ran out. His final fight was against a bull named Barbudo in Madrid back in 1801. As Jose waved his little red flag around, the bull charged him, stabbed him in the gut with its right horn, and then tossed him around like a rag doll for over 60 seconds. It's hard to say if this is really bad luck or simply fate just waiting to happen to a guy that fights off bulls for a living. Jose was gored. He had his insides ripped apart by the bull's horn, and then he was finally tossed onto the ground, dead. According to eyewitness accounts, the bull's horn had left a huge hole in the man's stomach. It was described as one of the most gruesome deaths ever seen in a bullfighting ring. Even if being killed by a bull is one of the dangers that comes with the job, Jose had the bad luck of being killed more violently and more bloodily than any other bullfighter before or after him. And number 1, killed by karma. Mel Ignato got away with murder. In fact, Mel was one of the luckiest murderers in history. He butchered his girlfriend in the most savage way possible and then simply walked away with no repercussions. But as it turned out, karma had an all too ironic plan for Mr. Ignato. The story goes back to December of 1988. Mel was in a relationship with his girlfriend, Brenda Schaefer, but after 2 years of dating, she decided to break up with him. He was abusive and she just couldn't take it anymore. In response to her dumping him, Mel went and got some help from his ex-girlfriend, Mary Ann Shore. Together, they crafted a diabolical plan. They dug a grave in the backyard of Mary Shore's house, even soundproofing the whole thing so that nobody could hear Brenda Schaefer when she screamed. On September 23rd, Mel took Brenda to Mary's house. He then pulled out a gun, locked her inside, blindfolded her, and tortured her so mercilessly that I can't even say what he did because it would just make you sick. And while all this was happening, Mary Shore was taking photographs. And finally, when all was said and done, they tied Brenda to a glass coffee table and killed her with chloroform. After Brenda was reported missing, Mel became the immediate suspect. Unfortunately, the police couldn't find any witnesses or physical evidence. The woman's body hadn't been found yet. Fast forward to 1991, Mel made a mistake and the police got the evidence they needed to put him away. But when the trial came, sloppy police work resulted in both Mary and Mel getting let off. 6 months later, Mel Ignato was busted when a carpet cleaner found the pictures that Mary had taken. He was sentenced to almost 20 years in jail. He was released in 2006, and that was when karma really caught up to him. 2 years after being free, after spending 2 decades in jail, he accidentally fell onto a glass table. This glass coffee table was much like the one he had killed Brenda Schaefer on. He cut open his arm and bled to death right there on the floor. Which of these people would you say was the absolute unluckiest of them all? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, remember to hit subscribe for more awesome videos. See you next time.